"I'm not doing so well," I said, as we sat under the tree and waited for Glennis and Claire to bring us what I would call lunch, but they called dinner. "It's Buzzer. He keeps taking them from me." Harris nodded. "He's a crook. That's how he got his name, sort of." "What do you mean?" "Well, we had an old collie dog somebody gave us last year. It didn't bother Buzzer none, but Buzzer he kept taking food from the dog. One day the dog got sick of it and bit him on the leg a little. That's how he got his name." "From getting bit?" "Naw, he killed the dog. Louie said it was like the dog got hit by a buzzsaw. So we called him Buzzer after that. Just keep giving him mice. He'll fill up in a little while." We sat leaning against some rocks. Newt had taken the bridles off the horses, rubbing their ears and saying low things to them while he did. And they were eating alfalfa off to the side. I liked the sound of their chewing. It made the grass sound like it tasted good. Newt rolled a cigarette and leaned back, dragging deeply. At the other end of the field I saw Glennis and Claire coming, carrying a double-handed boiler between them. Harris stood. "Come on, let's help 'em." He took off running across the field, and I followed, and we took a pail of water Glennis had been carrying in her free hand. "Mind you don't spill," Glennis said. "There's just enough for the horses." "Mind you don't spill," Harris mimicked, his voice sing-song. "There's just enough for the damn horses." Smack! He had forgotten himself. By taking the bucket from Glennis, we freed up her right arm, and she used it to pop him across the back of his head. "Watch your mouth." He was unfazed. "You ever try that? Watching your mouth? It's impossible. You can't see your mouth without you have a mirror, and I don't have a damn mirror." Smack! We walked in silence until we came to the horses. I thought it was mean to hit him. He swore naturally, the way I had heard soldiers swear in the Philippines. Swearing was a part of him. It was like hitting him for breathing. But it didn't seem to bother him to be hit. The horses drank the way they ate. Their sounds made the water seem delicious. We gave half the bucket to Bill, and then took it away to give the other half to Bob, after which they stood slobbering water and wriggling their lips before returning to grazing while we ate. Claire and Glennis had carried what amounted to another full meal out in the boiler. There was sliced bread with butter, cheese, a big pot of beef stew, a whole round cake, 3-quart jars of rhubarb sauce, a large bowl of cookies, and a couple of 2-quart jars wrapped thickly in feed sacks, one full of cool milk and the other full of hot coffee. I thought I would still be full from the 2 breakfasts and the forenoon lunch, but there was an edge of hunger there, and I found myself eating right along with Harris and Newt. The food was so good it made my jaws ache to chew. Neither Claire nor Glennis ate, but sat picking at grass and talking softly in a teasing way. Every once in a while Glennis would laugh softly and blush, and Claire would poke her with a finger and laugh. Newt leaned back and rolled and lit another cigarette when we were done, and Harris flopped on the grass and burped. "Good food," Newt said to Claire and Glennis by way of a compliment. He seemed about to say more, but stopped and watched a hawk swoop low over the new-cut grass, and I realized that Newt was always like that, always seemed about to say something, but never quite got it out. "I like field dinners," Harris said to no one in particular, "especially when Louie ain't here. You don't gotta fight so damn hard for food." Glennis was too far away to smack him, sitting on the grass watching the horses, but she turned and threw a clump of dirt at him. "Watch your tongue." He easily dodged and smiled, and I lay back on the grass at the edge of the field and watched small clouds moving across the sky overhead. A noise off to the side caught my attention, and I rolled up to see Claire feeding Buzzer a scrap of meat from the stew pan. She held it up, pinched between her thumb and index finger, and Buzzer delicately, with great care, using one needle-point claw in his huge foot, pulled it from her fingers and placed it into his mouth, the way he had done with the mice. "What kind of cat is he?" I asked. Newt smiled, but said nothing. "We found a picture in a magazine looks just like him," Harris said. "What was that, Ma? What kind of cat was it?" "He's a lynx," Claire said. "A big old puppy baby lynx." Her voice got soft, and you could see she wanted to pet Buzzer, but she didn't touch him, and when she didn't feed him more, he walked away and began hunting the edge of the field looking for more mice. In a little time Newt shredded his cigarette, and put the leftover tobacco back in the sack and stood. The horses watched him, waiting, and he hooked them back up to the mower and sat in the seat, and dinner was over. Harris took the sack of mice and moved to the back of the mower, and I followed, and the afternoon went that way. I got 7 more mice for myself, Harris about 40, Buzzer 6 of his own, and my other 14. He never did fill up. We ate again. Glennis and Claire brought out cake and milk and coffee and meat sandwiches, and then it was evening, and we rode the horses back to the barn in time to help with milking. This time Harris took half the time on the separator, which was just as well, because I was so tired I could hardly walk. I vaguely remember eating another huge meal in the evening, watching Louis swallow what seemed like a whole chicken, bones and all, with heaping mashed potatoes, gravy, biscuits, and pie covered with whipped fresh cream for dessert. But I was so tired everything was fuzzy and things seemed to blur together. After supper, what I would have called dinner, and what seemed like the 10th meal of the day, but was really only the 6th, everybody went into the dining sitting room and sat in chairs while a clock on the wall ticked, and I went face down on the table and started to sleep. I simply couldn't keep my eyes open. "Poor dear," Claire said. "He's a little tuckered." I felt somebody lift me, smelled Newt's tobacco, and I was carried upstairs and laid on my bed, fully clothed. I kicked out of my shoes and pants, and the events swirled in my head as I lay back in the dark. I'd been kicked in the testicles, slammed in the head, worked at the separator until my arms seemed about to fall off, narrowly averted disaster with a manic rooster, wrestled commie-Jap pigs in a sea of pig crap, ridden horses as big as dinosaurs, had a losing relationship with a lynx, eaten 18 or 20 meals, and helped to capture mice for God knows what purposes. And I'd been there 1 day. I tried to open my eyes. I'd heard Harris come in the room as I flopped back, and I needed to know the answer, was dying to know the answer. Why did Louis want the mice? But it was impossible. My eyes didn't open. A wave of exhaustion roared over me like a soft train, and I was gone.